The pandemic has put pressure on innovation worldwide, but at the same time, it's accelerating ingenuity in some industries like the health sector. The latest Global Innovation Index ranks world economies on innovation capacity. This year is similar to 2019, with Switzerland, Sweden and the United States leading the way. And for the first time, more than one Asian country is in the top 10. Singapore has defended its 8th position, while South Korea makes it to the 10th spot. It's part of a gradual shift towards Asia, with China, India and the Philippines, as well as Vietnam, also in the top 50. Now for a closer look, we're joined by co-author of the index and executive director of global indices at INSEAD, Dr. Bruno Lanvin. Dr. Lanvin, some positive results for the Asian economies, especially Singapore and South Korea.
Yeah, the shift towards Asia is not a surprise, because we've seen Asia leading the world in terms of growth for the past few years. So innovation is part of that general movement. But regarding Singapore and Korea, we have also reasons not to be surprised to find both countries in the top 10, because these are two countries who have given top priority to education on one hand and technology on the other hand. So the combination of the two is indeed very crucial for success in innovation.
We are seeing that. You've mentioned that. But why is this gradual eastward shift in centers of innovation besides just Singapore and Korea? And this report also says China, India, Philippines and Vietnam in the top 50.
Yes, indeed. It goes through the whole region. First, because there are complementarities in trade and investment, also in education, in exchange of knowledge and researchers, which creates a truly regional dynamic. Not all regions in the world are enjoying the same kind of synergies. For instance, in contrast with the positive trend in Asia, we see Latin America going down in the ranking globally, and also the Middle East this year, for different reasons, going down the rankings.
And what are some of the immediate effects that the pandemic has had on innovation as well as the world continues to battle the virus?
As you mentioned earlier, ingenuity has been part of how innovation has been stimulated by the COVID crisis. We've seen that in logistics, in online activities, etc. But in the longer term, there will also be more profound effects of COVID on innovation. In terms of financing, for instance, we see venture capitalists and other sources of fund being more risky in some way, in the way that they are focusing less on financing unicorns or future unicorns and hedging their bets, which means more financing for smaller firms. On the other hand, we see the opposite movement in terms of sectoral concentration. It is likely that the movement in terms of directing funds towards health, medtech, health tech, will continue, and that may be at the detriment of other sectors where innovation funding is needed.
So saying that, looking ahead in the longer term, the potential impacts of this economic fallout, what are some of them?
Well, we'll have to watch very closely what the recovery packages are, because what we've seen in China, in the US, in Europe, in other countries, is a combination, a careful combination between short-term needs and longer-term objectives. It is clear that the main goal of these recovery packages will be to cope with the most immediate difficulties, with the sectors and the companies where jobs may be lost, where failures may happen. And that should not be at the price of forgetting about the longer term. Innovation is a long-term effort. It's not a matter of putting money in it for 1 year or two. It needs continuity. And linking innovation to the major challenges that we are facing today is not just about health. It is also about climate change. It is also about reducing inequalities. So we will have to see how the recovery packages are articulated between short-term necessities and longer-term goals, because that will shape, to a large extent, the recovery that we all expect.
Now, businesses have been advised to capitalize on potential growth areas like innovation and digitalization brought about by the pandemic. Can these bright spots balance out the negative effects that we've seen?
Hopefully, yes. One question is that they may not have this counterbalancing effect in terms of employment, because the high-tech sectors are not heavy employers, as opposed to some manufacturing heavy sectors that we can all think of. In a number of countries, for instance, tourism has collapsed totally because of the impossibility to travel. Innovation is not a key characteristic of this sector, although it can be at times, but employment is a big characteristic. So the bright spot offsetting the darker spot will also be a matter of how the international climate evolves. When will international travel resume? And more importantly, when will nationalistic attitudes and postures start eroding? We now have a clear tendency towards more protectionism, less multilateralism. And what GII has shown year after year after year is that the countries that are most successful at innovation are the more open economies. So retrieving this level of trust in international relations will be very key to resuming innovation at the global level.
Well, thank you very much for your insights and helping us understand the latest Global Innovation Index. We've been speaking with Dr. Bruno Lanvin, co-author of the index and executive director of Global Indices at INSEAD.